What's banging, YouTube? It's the OG Bloodshot Red coming back with another one. And before I get into the content, I'd like to just say, man, I appreciate everybody who has subscribed to the channel. I appreciate all the views, and I appreciate the comments, man. Y'all get in them comments, man, and let me know, man, if y'all like this content or what direction y'all would like for me to go into. And I would also like for any new viewers right now to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and hit that share button. Get my little old content out there to some people who might not have me in their algorithm yet. And I appreciate that. And also, if you're a new viewer, I would suggest that you go back and watch my earlier videos. Man, I got about like 6 or 7 videos up. So just go back, man, and check them out so y'all can, see who I am and what I'm about. And, just learn a little bit about me, man, if this is your first time seeing me on your screen. And I appreciate it. Also, man, before I get into the content, I'd like to say this right here as a disclaimer. I do not promote any criminal activity that I may have committed or any criminal activity that anybody else has committed. What I do is talk about the experiences that I experienced in prison for the 30 years that I was incarcerated and the hard lessons that came out those experiences. And, with that being said, let's get into this content. Well, this situation right here, this is actually a part 2 to Bloods and Tango putting in their work. And I gotta say, man, I struggled real hard with telling this second part. I didn't know if I really wanted to. I talked to my wife, and she kind of like encouraged me. She just told me, you just got to tell it, man. You got to tell it, So with that being said, man, I'm gonna get into this, man. Well, after the situation that happened on Conley Unit with the Rev, I was segged up and I was transferred to Smith High Security in Lamesa, Texas. I stayed over there basically maybe 2 years, maybe a little longer, give or take. And I was transferred from Smith to Estelle High Security, SEG. Now, I do not know what happened, where Rosalio went. I do not know where Zapata went. And I do not know where Boy went. But a homeboy of mine who I did time with, watch my videos, he hit me up and told me that Red Dog actually went to Bill Clemens in Amarillo, where my homeboy was actually doing time with at. So shout out to B Down for letting me know that, man. I appreciate that, B Down. So I was in SEG on Estelle High Security for probably like maybe 6 months, and I saw UCC. And UCC is just unit classification, man. It's a board of, individuals that review your disciplinary, what you're in prison for and things like that, and just make a decision if you should be released back in general population or continue your SEG time. So by the luck of the draw, I was released back into general population on Estelle unit. Medium custody. So if y'all, anybody been over there, man, I was on H2. You got H1, H2. Those are the medium custodies. Those were medium custodies when I was there, and I was on H2. So I had been in general population for probably about maybe a couple of weeks, and I had just came in from work and crashed out in my cell and was woke up by a major, a captain, and some COs, about 3 COs. And they told me pack my stuff up. They were gonna come back and get me, right? So they didn't tell me what was going on. I didn't really ask. They ain't gonna if they didn't volunteer to tell me. Me asking not gonna get them to tell me. So I packed my property up. They came back. Boom. They took me to transit. So I'm sitting in transit, which is basically lockup, but your status is transit. And I'm back there maybe 2 weeks. And hadn't heard any word on why I was back there. Now, my initial thought was that they probably decided that they had let me out of SEG too early and was going to re-SEG me up. And, it was just the process, waiting on the paperwork or whatever and put me back in SEG. That's what I initially thought. After that second week, I got a little, frustrated. So I hustled up some paper because I didn't have any of my property. They still had all my property. So I hustled up paper, pen, envelope, stamps, from guy on the tier. And, I just wrote a letter to the free world. And, just told them, man, y'all, rattle the cage a little bit, let them know somebody out there, thinking about me and care about me, man. They need to, let me know what's going on and let y'all know what's going on. So shortly after that, the process of all of that, OIG came to talk to me, lady. And, that's like an investigator or whatever, I guess. And so she came and she asked me what happened on Conley unit. So I knew that this had something to do with Conley unit. And, I let her know, everything, pretty much what I wanted her to know and left out the parts that I didn't want her to know. And so she just, she asked me, she said, since you've been on this unit, no, she said, do you know that Reverend, and that's the name that I'm gonna stick with because that was the name they used. I'm not gonna use his government name. She said, did you know that the Reverend was on this unit? And I was like, nah, I didn't know he was on this unit. She said, yes, he's on this unit and he saw you in general population and filed a LID. Now, LID is a life endangerment, which he's stating that for him to be in population, his life is in danger. So he got to name somebody. So he put my name on the paperwork. And so this is why they had locked me up. And I was like, man, I didn't know he was here. I hadn't seen him or anything, right? And she say, so if we leave you over here, would you, attempt to do anything to him? And I assured her, nah, Now, in my mind, I mean, I know that what we did to him on Conley unit was a mistake. So there's no way I'm gonna even mess with him over here, And I mean, even if he was the actual dude who snitched, I probably wouldn't have messed with him over here anyway, because what we did to him on the other unit, man, was suffice. So, I'm telling the man, look, that would happen on another unit. It's over with. I don't have nothing against him, man, it's been some years past, I said, man, I'm good, and he's good. He can stay here and I can stay here and it's going to be all right. Ain't gonna be no problem. So she was like, all right, okay, cool. So she leaves. So I sit back there maybe another week. Well, while I'm back there, I'm talking over the tier and a guy hollers at me and say, man, hey man, what's your name? And I tell him, man, Bloodshot. He say, man, it's your celly. And I'm like, my celly from where? He say, from Conley unit. I say, man, from Conley unit. He said, yeah. And he hollered his name. And he was actually my celly when the incident with the Rev happened. So I'm like, man, what's going on? He said, yeah, man, the Rev over here, man. And he saw you in the hallway. And man, he just panicked, man. And blah, 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 this and that, right? And I'm like, for real? And he's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, the OIG came. So I give him a rundown about all of that. He was like, all right, yeah, man, you gonna do anything to him? Because you got to realize he didn't know that Rev wasn't the snitch, right? And I ain't really just putting it all out there, whatever. So I'm just like, nah, man, that's over with, man. Man, I ain't finna mess with that dude, man. I'm just trying to do my time, man, and move around or whatever. So we're like, all right, cool. So, man, I was sitting back there and sitting back there and sitting back there, still, man, no action. So man, I was back there almost a whole month from the time they actually put me back there, right? Now, the way that this lockup is made, there's two sides. So one side cannot make contact with the other side, but everybody on this side can communicate because it's just a row of cells, and everybody on this side can communicate because it's just a row of cells. But you cannot communicate with anybody on the opposite side. And so, man, a lady at the OIG came to me again. And she was like, man, have you made contact in any shape, form, or fashion with the Rev? And I'm like, no. She said, you haven't sent any SSIs over there. You haven't tried to send a kite to him or whatever. I'm like, listen, I don't even know where he's at, because I didn't know that he was back here at this time. I said, man, I don't even know where he's at. You know what I'm saying? I said, man, you tell me he's on the unit. That's all I know. And she said, well, okay, we'll get back with you. So, man, I'm like, man, what is going on, right? So I'm thinking he just studied pressing the issue, right? So, man, come to find out, man, this is why, I kind of struggled with the whole telling this story or whatever, man. But this is the whole thing that happened, man. He had filed a LID, and I found this out, after the fact, right? But he had filed a LID, hoping that the LID would get him transferred off the unit because, he was in fear that I was going to do something to him. And he was sent to the unit initially because it's a medical unit, and because he had lost the eye in the assault that we had did to him. He was blind in one eye, and he had a bunch of scars and stuff. His he teeth and stuff all knocked out or whatever. So they had sent him to their unit, And he had filed the LID in fear that, I was going to do something to him, thinking that I still thought that he was the one that had told on us. But I mean, that wasn't a fact. And when the LID didn't go through, they denied him because of what I said about me not going to mess with him and he could stay over on the unit, and I could stay on the unit or whatnot. They have what they call pulling a stunt. And, a lot of guys that's trying to get off units that's in fear of their life or just want to get off a unit and because they don't want to be on that unit, sometimes they cut themselves, sometimes they take pills and things like that or whatever, just to go, I guess to enhance the fact that, to the authorities that their life is actually in danger. And man, this dude unalived himself. He unalived himself, with a sheep. And I don't know if he was actually trying to unalive himself and things went wrong. I mean, if he was actually trying to unalive himself or he was just stunting and things went wrong. I don't know. But they came back to me and asked me if I made contact with him or whatever. And I told him, I hadn't seen him, hadn't spoke to him or anything. And she told me, that he had unalived himself in fear that I was going to retaliate on him for the things that happened on Conley Unit. And I just want to say, man, it was hard for me to tell this story, right? It just, the fact that he was not the actual person who, snitched on us about the wine. The fact that, I was doing wrong, man. I was doing wrong by making the wine. That's the main thing. I was doing wrong. I realize that now. We justify our wrongs and things like that, but I was doing wrong by making the wine. And to justify assaulting this dude because he told on me it's a flawed a sense of right and wrong, man. And to the extent that we did this to this guy, and on top of that, for him to be in such fear of the retaliation that he did this to himself, man, this right here is one of the hardest experiences that I went through while I was in prison. I often think about him, and when I first told my wife about this, I was really upset about it. I kind of shed some tears just from the idea of it, that he was not even the one. And I'm not saying that if he was, that this would still be justified. I'm not saying that, but it compounds the fact that he was not the one, and it ended like this, And so, I just often, think about, if I had saw him and would have been able to tell him, man, I apologize, which is it's not suffice to what we did to him, but just to be able to tell him that and tell him, I apologize and I know that you was not the one, how different things would have been, just how different things would have been. And so, that was the part two, man. And I know it don't have no real, climatic ending like y'all would have thought. It's a messed up ending, man. But yeah, it went down like that, man. So with that being said, man, I appreciate everybody, man. So, what's banging?